Today we're going to look at a website called Academia.edu to see what they're doing well with Open Graph and what they could do better. Now, a quick primer on what is Academia.edu. You could think of it as a LinkedIn for academics. They can sign up, they can set up a profile on here, they can follow other academics. That's a big part of it. So it's connecting all of people in academia. Another big part of it is you can upload research papers on here. And we see these links all over the place, right? You can view a full paper, you can save it to the library. And it actually does a lot more than that, but these are kind of the big things that it's known for. Let's have a look at things that they're doing well in their Open Graph and things that could be improved. So right off the bat, these pages where people can share their research paper, if we actually look at the page of a research paper, let's open one of these things and we scroll down. We can actually see the paper in our browser. And that's good, right? We open this thing, we want to see a paper, that's what we expect to see. Now, if we look at the Open Graph link for this thing, if we share this paper, let's say that we want to share it on Twitter and say, hey, check out this paper that I wrote. Or maybe you want to share it in your Slack or Microsoft Teams within your institution. This is what you would get. You would see this icon right here of this piece of paper, and it would have the title of the paper, so that's good. If we flip through and say like Discord, if you want to share in there, this is kind of what it would look like in Slack as well. There's not really much that's inviting us to click on that paper. I'm not looking at this thinking like, oh yeah, this is something I want to click on. So one way to improve that, this little generic link right here, is to make this thing look like that, right? We want to put the title of our brand up here, and then we want to have a research paper kind of putting into context like, hey, this is a research paper. The title helps, so we have this more visual thing. And then, of course, the next thing that we can do is actually show the paper. Let's show kind of the first paragraph or the abstract or something and make that look like something that we'd want to click on. So just comparing these two things, like which one would you want to click on? Probably this one, the more visual one. And now, why is it important to have a good looking Open Graph preview? If you think about it, SEM, sure, there's still a lot of traffic coming from search engines, but I would argue that as AI increases, these moments where somebody is sharing a link to a paper, it's going to become more important to make a really good first impression if you want to drive and improve click-through rates. So you can imagine a researcher sharing this in their Slack or putting it on Twitter or even sharing it on Academia. You would probably want to see some preview like this to improve click-through rates and drive traffic and kind of keep that flywheel going as search engine traffic becomes less of a thing. And I would imagine too, these agentic like Claude Code type UIs and ChatGPT, they're going to want to show previews for this stuff too. And if you have a good Open Graph preview, that's something that will become increasingly important. All right, so let's actually look at a few more of these things. So there are these kind of groups of um, collections of papers, if you will, these libraries of papers. And I think that's more apparent if we go into academia.edu when we're not logged in. So we can see there's medieval history, there's all these papers. And again, if we just share this link today, we'll go back here. There's actually no open tag, or there's no Open Graph tags there. So if this was shared in a chat or if this was shared on Twitter or something like that, this is all it would show. It would show the title, it would show the domain. Again, it's not something that people want to click on. This, I think it could use a little bit more work to make it a little more clickable, but I would argue you do have a much larger click target here, so it's just easier for people to find it and click on it. And that alone will drive more click-through rates through, but it's not hard to imagine that you may want to put something like a background here that's thematic to the ancient Greek history. The papers, again, we've already covered that. Here's a nice side-by-side though. If somebody is sharing this, I would definitely want to click on this over, what's going on here. Actually, to flip back to the tools here, if we actually look at these meta tags that are on here, we can see that all of these research paper, there's 15 million of them. They're just referencing this GIF file. And if we look at the size of these things, the size is not even right. So it's this image is a square. So that's not great. Usually, most Open Graph images, you want them to be a 2-to-1 aspect ratio. There's actually a lot of 1.9 to ones, but um, you want to have 2-to-1. So 1200 by 600 is a pretty reasonable dimension to have there. You definitely don't want to have squares. Um, the file size is tiny. That's awesome, but there's a lot of just missed opportunity that academia is leaving on the table for click-throughs by just having this kind of square image that I'm not sure how old it is, but this could definitely be improved. And again, if we look at the side by side on these things, this one is just miles ahead of whatever that preview is. Now on the homepage, if we look at the Academia.edu homepage, and again we have to go into our view here, we will see that there is an Open Graph tag. And this is actually, you can see Open Graph tag. So if you look in the head of any HTML page, you will see OG image, and we have a path that connects to this black image here. So if we actually bring this thing up on our link tester, we will see, we don't need to bring up the link tester. We've already seen that. So this is what it looks like today. That's actually fine. You know, you have a click-through target. It kind of tells you what's going on. It could be improved a little bit more. And this template here, which is generated by Open Graph Plus, it's actually syncing in real time to the website. So if this flips up to like 56 million, this would just automatically update. Same thing for these numbers. It's all just pulled off of the website because the way that Open Graph Plus works is it takes a screenshot of the web page that's being shared, and there's some templates and some things that can be done to it to make it look like this. But the important thing is that it's actually pulling data from the web page and it's loading into this visual and then it's rendering it and serving it up to users. And finally, one thing that I noticed is Academia does have profiles. So if we go in here and I want to share my profile, this link right here, today, if that is shared, it looks something like this, right? We have, again, the name, that's good. We have the web address, which is also good, but we can see here that the image is cropped awkwardly. So what we end up with is you see half the person and the top and the bottom is cut off. That's what's going on here. That's how the Open Graph is working today. This is actually very common across a lot of websites. Most content websites work like this with Open Graph, where they just kind of take like, oh, we had this static image. Let's just point that to Open Graph. But oftentimes, if that static image is square and you serve it up, this is the result you're going to get. With Open Graph Plus, though, of course, you can drop that in here, and then again, using the templates, you can modify everything that's on the page and end up rendering this thing that I think looks a little bit more clickable. If you think about, I don't really have a profile that's up to date here, but if we looked at Richard's profile, he obviously has everything more updated. And we can see here that, we see that. We immediately know like, oh, Richard Price, University of Oxford. So we have what we need and, we can click on that. We no longer have that cut off profile picture. We have this nice circular picture. And that's really how that thing goes. All right, so the next thing that we have, Academia is getting into the business of having academic journals. So there's an AI and applications journal. And again, if we look at that now, there's just nothing. So there are no Open Graph URLs for the Academia journals. So if it's shared, and again, if it's shared in like a team Slack or something like that, I'm not really sure who's going to want to click on that. Like maybe they will if there's some more context with it, saying like, hey, you got to read this journal, check this thing out. But again, I would argue that if you're sharing a journal link, you probably want it to look kind of like the cover. I know, again, I would be more tempted to click on this link if this was shared in Slack, or if somebody sent this to me over Apple Messages. I would want to click on that more so than clicking on this thing. So that's a pretty decent overview of, this is actually an accurate representation of how a lot of websites are using Open Graph today. It's just something that teams don't really think a lot about. It's kind of these things that it's just on the periphery. And that's the whole point of Open Graph, is that you get this whole kit that you can use to deploy. So what could Academia do to scale this thing out? If they wanted to use Open Graph I do know that they are running a very large Rails application, so they could start here. They'd install the Open Graph plus gem. This gem is actually very small. It's just generating meta tags. There's nothing else that's happening there. It's getting this API key that you sign up for on the site. You install this gem, and then this thing is simply generating meta tags. And then the things that I was showing you on the site is actually using templates. So again, if we go into docs, HTML, we can see here there's templates, and this is just standard HTML. So what I did is I kind of sideloaded these templates that took the content from the Academia.edu page, kind of massages these things with some JavaScript, and then renders them on screen. So that's one way to do it. If you have kind of a complicated website, which I'm noticing a ton of these sites that have been around for over a decade are, you would put this in the header of whatever page it is, and then it would get picked up dynamically. And Open Graph Plus has browser instances running that would actually open this from the server, and it would just download over the public internet. This is all public stuff anyway on the page. It would process this, take a screenshot of it, and then serve it up. And it does all that in under 2 seconds. All right, so to kind of illustrate how that actually all works at runtime, um, here's kind of how to think of Open Graph Plus, right? So we have the website Academia. They have this page at academia.edu. And then over here we have Open Graph Plus. Just write OG Plus. All right, so let's say that this is a web page. We have a title on it and some stuff. If we actually viewed the source of this web page, we would find these meta tags. And so we have meta, and then there's content, which is the actual name of the tag, so OG image. And then we have another key here called URL, which this is the integration with Open Graph actually. So this thing right here, this URL is actually just requesting an image from the Open Graph Plus web servers. And so what happens is if you fire up something like Apple Messages, so let's say that you send this link, we'll call it foo. So we have /foo, and then we send somebody this message, right? We're like, hey, check out /foo. Let's call this like the messages app, right? So check out /foo. So what actually happens in chat applications, and this is what's happening to Academia, it actually fires off a request back to this page. And it says, hey, academia.edu/foo, I want to try to generate a preview image for you. Like, do you have any? And then Academia, if it has an Open Graph image, it will serve up this tag, right? It's just all part of the public page. So if it's a static image, then that's what we're going to see right here. So, maybe we'll see that generic paper that's a square. But if this URL and this meta tag, if that's pointing instead to the Open Graph Plus servers, this is kind of where the magic happens, right? So this thing gets the request and it says, oh, hey, I need to take a screenshot of the food page. And so Open Graph Plus gets that. It requests this page. It just takes a screenshot of it. So it requests this page, it reads some of the meta tags on here, such as the template. So there's actually another meta tag on this page if it had an Open Graph Plus integration that would be called OG Plus template. And there's nothing fancy to that. It's just a string that's hanging out in HTML. And that string, that template string, it's actually part of the DOM. That's actually read by the Open Graph Plus image renderer. So Open Graph Plus loads the /foo page. It shows whatever the logo is and some things and maybe the paper. So it reads that template and actually renders that template. It takes a screenshot of this template and then it serves that up to whatever the Open Graph consumer is. So that's how that works. That's all the magic that Open Graph Plus is doing under the covers here. And what's kind of cool about this, you get these nice looking previews that people want to click on, right? So we have foo, we have the paper and all that stuff. But what's pretty cool about that is Apple Messages, we'll have that. This requests a certain size image. Like it will display, it actually does okay with square images. Not all social networks do. So one cool thing about Open Graph Plus is it knows like, oh, hey, I'm being requested by Apple. I'm being requested by um, I'm being requested by Facebook. I'm being requested by Twitter or LinkedIn, and those all have different sizes. So Open Graph Plus is actually capable of rendering squares that look pretty good, right? So we have a title and we have the paper there. If it's more of a, sorry, that's a rectangle. If it's more of a square, it could do something like this. Maybe that's how it looks on LinkedIn or messages. And the templates can actually detect that, and you can serve up different kind of variations of that template. So you can get pretty fancy with Open Graph Plus. But this is all the stuff that happens under the covers, so that you don't even have to think about it. All you have to worry about if you're building a website and you integrate with Open Graph Plus is getting these meta tag images on there, and then Open Graph Plus takes care of all the other stuff and does all the heavy lifting of managing all the browser instances that have to fire up and take screenshots of this, and it pretty much just stays out of the way. So it's kind of nice as far as like running this thing on a production website. If for some reason there were issues with OG Plus, there would only be some thumbnails that don't get rendered, but it would not actually affect the production environments for that website. And that's awesome, right? That's kind of whenever you start integrating services at scale, you want that. You want it such that if there's issues or outages with other services, they just are so decoupled that they don't affect the stability of the main service. So that's another kind of, I guess, deep dive into the technical way that Open Graph Plus works, and how it can work alongside websites that are serving a lot of traffic. So hope you enjoyed that overview. If you want to check this landing page out, you can go to opengraphplus.com/imagine/academia. And of course, if you want to hook your website up to Open Graph Plus, go to opengraphplus.com, and you can put your website URL in there or just sign up. There's a get started button here when you're not signed in. And you should be up and running with Open Graph on your website in 10 minutes or less. And then, of course, you can tweak it, play around with templates. If you go to the docs, there's plenty in here. There's all sorts of ways to customize the look and feel of your Open Graph images. But it is all HTML and CSS at the end of the day, so it works well with web stacks. And because it's decoupled, it works well with highly scaled web applications. So yeah.